Okay, let's get right into it. If you are just so tired of studying for hours and hours only to feel like you forget everything on exam day, you've come to the right place. We are going to dive into the real science of how to learn effectively so you can get the results you want without all the burnout.
Does this feel familiar? You put in the hours, you're hunched over the books, but the information, it just doesn't seem to stick. It is an incredibly frustrating feeling, and trust me, it's way more common than you might think.
You are so not alone in this. I mean, look at this. Even among medical students where the stakes are super high, a staggering 95% were found to have time management skills that were just average or worse. The problem here isn't a lack of effort, it's the lack of an effective strategy. And here's the absolute heart of the issue. We think we're being productive. One study found that while almost half of students, 42%, believed they were good at managing their time, only 20% were actually using a simple tool like a calendar. That huge gap between how we see ourselves and what we actually do, that's where all our best intentions just fall apart. So, this leads us to a pretty surprising, maybe even uncomfortable truth. We need to challenge the very foundation of how most of us were taught to study. Why? Because it turns out the most popular methods are often the least effective.
Highlighters out, right? Pages just full of neon colors underlining everything, rereading the same chapter until your eyes glaze over. We've all done it. And these things feel so productive, they look like real hard work. But, well, the science tells a very different and kind of brutal story.
This quote just nails it. The danger is that these passive methods don't just waste your time, they actually trick you. They create this false sense of confidence, making you believe you know the material, when in reality, you don't. Here's the big idea. When you just reread something, your brain isn't really learning it. It's just getting familiar with the words on the page. And it mistakes that comfortable feeling of, oh yeah, I've seen this before, for genuine understanding. This is a cognitive trap, and it's exactly why you can draw a total blank on an exam for a question you thought you knew cold. All right, enough about what's broken. Let's talk about how to fix it. To really study smarter, you only need to understand two core principles of how your brain is actually wired to learn, and more importantly, remember information. Okay, principle number one is active recall. This is huge. Instead of just passively reading stuff, you have to actively pull the information out of your own memory. And here's the key thing. That feeling of struggle when you're trying to remember something, that's not a sign of failure. That is the learning happening. You're strengthening those neural connections. It's like lifting weights for your brain instead of just watching someone else at the gym. And the results? I mean, they're not subtle at all. Research shows students using active recall techniques retain about 57% of what they study, and the ones who just reread, only 29%. That is nearly double the retention. This isn't just a small tweak, folks. It is an absolute game changer. And principle number two is distributed practice, sometimes called spaced repetition. Think of it as the exact opposite of cramming. Instead of one massive all-night study marathon, you spread your learning out over time in shorter, more frequent bursts. This gives your brain the time it needs to actually process and store memories for the long term. Okay, so we have the theory down now, right? Active recall and spaced repetition. Now for the fun part, let's build your practical toolkit. Here are some real, concrete techniques you can start using literally today. First up, let's get your day organized with a method called Eat the Frog. It's simple. You identify that one big, important, maybe kind of intimidating task you've been putting off. That's your frog, and the rule is simple. Do it first. Just get it out of the way, you'll spend your best, most focused energy on your most important work, and that sense of accomplishment is going to power you through the rest of the day. Next, let's turn your note-taking from a passive activity into an active one with the Cornell system. This is so much more than just writing things down. You record your notes, sure, but then you condense them into keywords. Later, you cover the notes and use just those keywords to try and recall the information. It builds active recall right into your workflow from the very beginning. And for your actual study sessions, here are 3 powerhouse active recall tools. You've got the blurting method, close the book, take a blank page, and just write down everything you can possibly remember. Then there's the Feynman technique, where you try to explain a topic in the simplest terms possible. If you can't, you've just found where you need to study more. Or just turn your notes into questions and quiz yourself. Easy. Now, adapting these new methods, it really does require a bit of a mindset shift. So let's talk about how to make these smarter habits actually stick for the long haul.
Here is the single most powerful mindset shift you can make. If your studying feels easy, you're probably doing it wrong. Remember that feeling of struggle we talked about? That's not failure. That is literally the feeling of your brain building stronger memories. So you have to learn to embrace that difficulty. It's the best signal you have that real learning is actually happening.
Look, a great system only works if it's sustainable, and that means being realistic. Some days you just won't eat the frog, and you know what? That is perfectly okay. The goal here isn't perfection, it's consistency. You have to schedule breaks to avoid burnout and maybe find a study partner to keep you accountable. A good study system is always supported by good life habits.
So, I'll leave you with this challenge. What is the one important, challenging task that's going to move you forward tomorrow? Think about it. Identify that frog tonight and make a plan to tackle it first thing. That right there, that's your first real step to truly studying smarter, not just harder.